Hello guys and welcome back. In this video we are going to be learning the principles of animation. So there are 12 principles of animation, first introduced by two Disney animators in the year 1981. These are Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas. So they released these 12 principles of animation in the year 1981 based on previous researches they did and observations of animations that had existed right from 1930. So they actually introduced about 12 principles of animation, but we are going to be looking at only 6 of them. So these principles are very important to guide us in achieving very realistic animation. So the first principle we are going to be looking at is squash and stretch. So squash and stretch is arguably the most important principle of animation. When applied in our animations, it gives our objects the illusion of gravity and weight. Understand? It gives us the illusion of gravity, weight, and flexibility. For example, here we have two balls bouncing. So one has squash and stretch and the other doesn't have squash and stretch. So the first ball has squash and stretch. We can see that as it goes down, it stretches on its way going, and then as it bounces on the table, it then squashes. So that's basically the idea of squash and stretch. This other ball has no squash and stretch applied, but this one has squash and stretch. So one thing to consider in squash and stretch is that you make sure the volume of your object remains the same during the squashing and stretching. So when we look at the scale values of our object here that has the squash and stretch, we see that it has 100, so 200 in total. So what you have to make sure is that during the process of squashing and stretching, your entire value here has to add up to 200. So you must have 200 throughout your entire squashing and stretching. So at whatever point we come, we will testify that when we add the first value to the second value, it still gives us 200. So that's the idea for squash and stretch. So the second principle of animation we're going to be looking at is the anticipation. So this anticipation, what it does is it prepares the viewer's eyes for what's going to happen next. So we can see that our first object here has no anticipation applied, but our second object here has anticipation applied. This makes our movement more realistic. We can see that the second object, before it moved forward, it moved back a little bit before moving forward. Moves back a little bit before moving forward. So that's a typical example of anticipation. We can see anticipation even in real life examples. For example, if you want to jump, you have to bend your knees. So bending your knees is an example of anticipation for the action, which is jumping. So that's basically it for anticipation. So the third principle of animation is staging. So I'm just going to bring it here. So what is staging? So staging is more of composition in design. If you know graphic design, you will understand what I mean by composition. It means arranging your elements in such a way that the viewer gets to see the most important things and gets to receive the message you want to pass across very explicitly. So staging is very similar to that. In staging, we guide the viewer's eyes and draw their attention towards very important within the scene, So for example, if we play it, we see that this is an example of good staging. So we see that every element comes out at its appointed time. The objects do not appear randomly, but they appear one after the other at the appointed time, so as to guide the viewer's eyes to what's important. So this is basically a good example of staging, of good staging, and then this is an example of bad staging. Now we see that everything is coming out very disorganized, in a very disorganized manner, not one after the other. Everything is just coming out at the same time, and the viewer's eyes will not be guided to what's important. So that's basically it for staging. And then the next principle of animation is follow through. So this is an example of follow through. So we can see that when the object moves and comes to a standstill, the other part of the object come to a standstill too, but not at the same rate as the main object. So that's basically it for follow through. We see that this gives us more realism in our animation. It makes our animation very much more realistic. And then we have the ease in and ease out. This is an example of ease in and ease out. So what is ease in and ease out? To understand ease in and ease out, let's use a car for example. When the car starts to move, it starts very slowly and then later accelerates to the speed which the driver wants to accelerate to. And when the car is trying to slow down, it goes gradually from the high speed, it gradually slows down to 0 and stops. So that's basically it for easy ease and easy out. It's the same concept. Objects have ease in and ease out by nature. Moving objects have ease in and ease out by nature. So that also gives realism. If we remove ease in and ease out, if we make the object, okay, for example, this object here doesn't have ease in and ease out, so we can see how very unrealistic it looks. Very unrealistic. Just moving on a straight line, just linear. It's not looking good at all. So ease in and ease out gives us a lot of realism. And finally, we have the arc. This is an example of the arc. So what is the arc as a principle of animation? So when objects move in nature, they usually move in arcs. Take for example, for you tossing a ball into the air. So when you toss the ball, it flies in the air before landing. It lands as a result of gravity acting upon it. So you observe that when you throw the ball, it follows a natural arc path as gravity works on it. So that's it for arc. Objects without arc will basically walk this other way. We can see the yellow ball. That's how objects without arc will walk, and you can see that that's very unrealistic. Okay, so objects with arc are going to go like this. So that's it for the principles of animation, and hope to see you in the next. Bye. Hey, so that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. We post new videos every week covering topics in the fields of graphic design and illustration, motion graphics and video, branding, and more. If you want to support us and get access to exclusive benefits such as the project files we use in our classes, a live chat with us, shoutouts, and more, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You can join for as little as $3 a month, and the link to our Patreon page is in the description below. And if you want to take your learning to the next level, you can check out the complete course, of which this episode is a part of. And in the complete course, you get access to more than 10 hours of video lessons, project files and resources, class exercises, a Q&A section, a certificate of completion, and more. You can get the course for a special discount by using the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.